Welcome back to another video in Introduction to Python. This is Chapter 2 of the Python Essentials 2 course, and we'll be going over some revision on strings and lists and building on some more detail. So we'll be talking about the coding standards used to represent strings, each character, and then we'll expand on the methods and functions that you already know about to handle strings and lists. In part 2 of chapter 2, we'll cover the exceptions that can arise and how to handle them. So in last session, we talked about packaging up the modules and functions so that we can create an application, and then we can transport that application or package around as we need to, and we can access it using the Python installation package program, pip, and we can access the library where people have shared source code and packaging, so you can download and make use of what they've already created. Each character is represented by a number, and each of these have to be a unique number so that it represents, for example, an uppercase and a lowercase letter. Basically, everything that you can see on your keyboard when you look down is represented by a number, including spaces and control characters. The main one that people refer to as a character set is ASCII, which is the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, and it has 256 unique characters in its table. So here's a small top selection. So as you can see, we have a list of character down there which are basically control. Then we have our spaces, our exclamation marks, brackets, and then upper and lower case characters. And you'll see that the G, for example here, capital G is 71, lowercase g is 103. So each of them have a unique number corresponding to the way the character is displayed. Now, that's okay for good old English, but not so good for other languages. So the I18N, which is Internationalization, is a standard that enables us to use different character sets around the world, and a standard code page under this is 128 code points, and it's been around with us for a while. Now, that Unicode, Unicode sort of replaces all of it because it allows us the ability to adjust to any character set that we wish. And this allows us to reference and build on top of ASCII. So the first 256 Unicode points are identical to basically the ASCII codes. We then move off into the individual representations. Now, you got universal character sets and Unicode transformation formats. Now, a lot of these are around the place. I mean, if you've done any HTML coding, you would hopefully be very familiar with UTF-8, as it's a fairly common character set used in HTML. So why did we talk about that? Well, depending on where you are or your client base, you might need to use different character sets to get the results that you want. So we need to be able to use the character sets that are required for the outcome that we're aiming for. Now, general rule of thumb, Python, one line of code is a statement. We can actually use multi-line. So we can do this by using the triple apostrophe at the start and end of the string. So you start it off with multi-line equals and triple apostrophe, and then just write your lines that you want and then finish it off again with the triple. Then you can do what you want with that string. Strings, I'm hoping you remember, can be joined and replicated, and we can do that by using the plus operator, and the second, which is the replicated, by using the asterisk, which is replicate a string a number of times. Now, when you're doing the replicate function, it doesn't matter which order they're in, whether it's the string and then the number of times you want to have it replicated, or vice versa. Ordinal function is used to determine the code point. So it basically uses a character string as its argument and returns the number for that code point. While the character is the reverse, so you can put in the code point and it gives you the representing character. Now that will depend on which character set you've got running. Think of strings as a sequence of characters. So in that way, we can use a lot of the same functionality that we find in lists, but apply that directly to a string. So for example, we can do loops and indexing loops and iterating loops. So what does that mean? It means we can go through and extract a character at a time and rebuild and manipulate it in some fashion. Just like we can go in and grab individual elements out of a list, we can affect how we can display the string by selecting the individual characters within the string. This does not change the value of the string, you're just extracting individual characters. You can slice and dice a string, so you can cut it up, only display a certain number of characters, but your original string is still intact. Okay, So all what you're doing is creating a result by applying a method or a function to the string, and that has to have an action attached to it. So you can search a string with the in or not in operators. So you can search for one or more characters in the string. It will start from the left, work your way to the right, and it'll return a true or false result. So that's pretty much it for the similarities. If you try to use the delete or append and insert methods on a string, you will get into strife, because the delete method actually deletes your string. You can't append or insert characters into the actual alphabet example here that we've got. What we have to do is redefine the original string with the modification that we want to make. So in the examples here, we've got alphabet, which is missing a bit, missing the A off the front. So we can redefine the alphabet to append A with the original alphabet, and then append Z to the end of it. Now, that is not actually modifying the original string. Each line is redefining the string. Okay, minimum. Now, this is going to return the smallest code point from within the string. So in the example here, where we go print minimum and then we have a string, what you do is you look up each character in its code point value, and it will return the value that is the smallest. In this case, it's capital A, because its code point is 65, whereas the lowercase a is 97. And the B's and the Y's and the Z's are higher values. So, what's the opposite of min? It's the max. So it works the same way. It looks for the highest code point within the string value. We can do a index search. So we're looking for a specific character. But if we reference something that exceeds the string values, we'll get a value error exception. Alright, we can create a list from a string. So it'll break up each character into a separate element in the list that it creates. We can count the number of times a letter is used within a string. We can capitalize string, which will convert the first alphabet to a capital, and then all the remaining case will be lowercase. So here's a few examples where you can see we've changed the first character to uppercase and then the rest to lowercase. And you're going, but you got a lowercase alpha there on the second line. Yes, because the first character in the string is white space. So that's the one that got capitalized, so to speak. Center method's original, it's a little different. Okay, so creates a copy of your original string and then adds characters, whether it's spaces or another value, to either side of your original character set up to the number of characters that are specified in the center argument. If the argument is smaller than the original character set, then the command basically has no discernible change to the string. If it's larger than the value, then it'll try to evenly space the characters around that length. You can have two arguments in the center method, and that's represented down the bottom. So here again we're saying we're going to center 12 characters in length, and we're going to fill the space with an asterisk. So it's going to try to center gamma, which is the original string, and then fill in the spacing with the asterisk. Next is our ends with. So this checks the final character in the string and returns a true and false. Now when I say it's not just a single character, it's whatever the argument length is. Now remember, a string is a series of code points that it's checking. And we've already saw that capital and lowercase values are quite different. So when you're checking a string, case matters. Find method is similar to the index in that it looks for a string and returns where it finds it. So it can be looking for a single character or multiple characters, but they've got to be in the exact same order and the same case. Now we can modify that with adding our lovely arguments to the index. So what we can do is we can start the count or the search partially through the string set. So let's have a look. Oh, I didn't put it in. Okay. I thought I'd put in an example of that. My mistake. Okay, next one is looking for digits in the search. So it is going to look to see if there's a particular combination. So what it's looking for is digits or alphabet characters. If it's only got ABCs, zeros to nines, it will return true. If it has any other character that is not considered a alphabetical character or a number, it will return a false. So in the second example, we have an underscore. This is not considered a alpha character, so it returns a false. Now, I'll let you look up all the lovely details on these ones, but it's an alpha, only checks for letters, lower, checking for lowercase letters only, upper, digit, spaces. So the above will return a false result if anything else is found. So if it's looking for letters only, if it finds anything other than what can be classed directly as an alphabetical character, it's false. Goes for all of them. I know you're getting sick and tired of hearing these. Yeah. A few more to go. Join will join a series together. So when you want to grab a string and add your elements from a list, then this is the way to go. Now, none of these elements have anything between them when they're joined. Okay, so you just sticking them together one after the other. So you've got no separators between them. With all of our functions here, we talked about lower in the searches. So here we can actually take a copy of our string and replace all the uppercase characters with their lowercase counterparts, and that's the result that is returned. Then we have the strip. Again, it's going to take a copy of the original string, strip any leading white spaces off the string, and that's your result. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't modify the original string. It takes a copy of it and returns that copy with the modification or action applied to it. So your original string value is still intact. Replace. Again, we can replace the characters that are specified in the argument for the second argument. Now, this comes in handy when you're basically doing a search and find, replace, aren't you? So you search for this character set and replace it with this character set. But your original string is intact. And then we have a 3 argument option, which is a number, and this restricts the number of replacements that can occur in the string. So, for example, if you want to only have the first 2 matches replaced, then you put the limit as 3 so that it stops, doesn't replace that third. rfind and rstrip are the same as the original find and lstrip, but it's going to start from the end of the string, from the right hand side and working backwards. Split, it splits up the characters from the strings and builds a list of all the substrings of it. Start with is the mirror image of ends with, checks to see whether the start character is specified, and strip is a combination of rstrip and lstrip, so it makes a new string lacking the leading and trailing white spaces. So if you've done, for example, our lovely centering, and for some reason you want it to be uncentered with the default of spaces being added either side, strip. Swap case is pretty straightforward. It swaps the character for lowercase to uppercase and vice versa. Title changes the first letter to uppercase and then turns all the others to lowercase. Upper method is basically the opposite, so it takes all the lowercase and replaces them with uppercase. You have all your standard comparison operators that we have used in the introduction of Python. We went through these extensively at the start. So you've got the equals to, not equals to, equals to, and greater than or less than. So remember, when we do these comparisons, the string value is a string regardless of whether it's got digits in it. We cannot do multiplications. We can't do a comparison between integers and strings. They're not the same data type. So a string of 3, 0 and an integer of 30 are very different things. Sorting. So this one allows us to go through and grab our list and rearrange it in alphabetical order. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, some people like having things in a particular order. Now, one's a function called sorted and the other is a method. Now, if you cast your mind back, a function is standalone. It takes an action independent of the data set. Whereas a method is called by the data set. So here we are conducting a function against the data set. Whereas the second example, we have the data set calling the method for action. It's a subtle difference, but very important. All right. Well, welcome to the summary page. I think you've probably had enough for talking about strings and character sets and all the various methods that you can use to affect and convert strings to provide a different output or result from the original string. So we'll leave the exceptions to the next video, and until then, it's bye for me.